Do you want to pass your next Salesforce certification exam? Well, you're in the right place. This is Salesforce Exam Questions. If you're new to this series, we work through 10 Salesforce questions per video to help you understand how to read the questions for keywords and study up on important concepts. This all increases your likelihood of selecting the right answer on the exam. You will likely see some version of these questions on the exam, so stay tuned. All right, today we are back with another session working towards helping you pass the Sales Cloud Consultant exam. And we're specifically focusing on the implementation strategies section. So we're going to go through 10 questions today. Let's hop into it. Question 1. CloudKicks just deployed Sales Cloud globally and wants to make sure that all of its users are using Salesforce. How should the consultant determine if sales reps from all regions are using Salesforce? So this is really trying to get to adoption. Adoption is how well people are using Salesforce and how much they're using Salesforce in an organization. So what I will say is, let's look at A. Install Salesforce adoption dashboards from the App Exchange and use the region chart. So that sounds like a pretty good option. The App Exchange already has pre-configured dashboards, not only for adoption, but for other sales cycle or sales life cycle related topics. So this seems like a pretty good choice. B, assign all users to a region, build a report using user login history, and filter on region. So this is not a bad idea. You can build a report, especially as a consultant or an admin. But when you compare that to just installing dashboards from the App Exchange, that seems like so much more work that you would have to do. So even though B is possible, it's just a lot more work than A. So I would probably cross that out. And then C, ask each regional sales manager to run the standard user adoption report. So that's going to be canceled out automatically, I think, when you're working in organizations, when you have to ask someone else to do something and then you have to wait for it. It's adding additional time, and also each of the regional sales managers might run this report like in a different way. So this is just inefficient, and so that brings us to A as the correct answer for this question. So the key takeaway here is that you can install dashboards, you can build dashboards, you can ask other people to build dashboards, but the thing that will get you to the quickest outcome effectively is probably installing them from the App Exchange. So this is really targeting your understanding of like doing a cost benefit analysis. So let's move on to question 2. CloudKicks has the goal of generating high quality leads by implementing Sales Cloud. Which metrics should the consultant analyze to determine the success of this goal? So the goal is to generate high quality leads by implementing Sales Cloud. So what metric is connected to high quality leads? So A, total number of leads created by a sales rep. The number of leads has nothing to do with the quality. It's just quantity. So that will be eliminated. B, total number of leads by source. Not really. It's a total number. It's quantity. It's not related to quality again. So this is going to be eliminated. And C, lead to opportunity conversion rate. This is our correct answer. So if a lead is converted to an opportunity, this is an indicator that it is a high quality lead. So leads are unqualified opportunities, they're potential to be opportunities, but they're not yet converted to an opportunity. If a lead is converted to an opportunity, that indicates that this is a customer or a client that we want to work with. Therefore, this is a high quality lead. So the conversion rate is the best way to get at the high quality metric here. Moving on to 3, after a project deployment, several bugs are identified by end users and prioritized by the project team. What are 2 ways the consultant should resolve these issues? And we're going for 2 answers. So A, build out issue resolution release in the appropriate sandbox. That sounds like a pretty good one. An issue resolution release is you've identified that there's a bug, you've identified that there's an issue, and you're going to correct it in the sandbox. That is a pretty good choice. So I think that will go, I will circle that one. Perform user acceptance testing in a full sandbox. That's a good one as well. User acceptance testing should be performed in the sandbox. But with C, why is C the wrong answer? Build out issue resolution release in the production environment. That's not the right answer. You don't ever want to build out anything in the production environment. That's like a key giveaway that this is going to be eliminated. You want to build, if you're building anything in Salesforce, you want to build in your sandbox and then deploy to production. Don't ever build in production first. So anytime you see a question that's telling you build in production, you most likely should be eliminating that. So A and B are our correct answers here. During the deploy phase at CloudKicks, users are finding it difficult to use a new system, which is impacting adoption. How should the consultant avoid this issue in the future? So we have a new system, people are having trouble using it, therefore, because they're having trouble using it with its functionality, they're not using it, right? Because it's difficult to use it, they're choosing not to use it, therefore, there's low adoption of the system. So gain buy-in during the analyze phase, we're looking at choice A. This doesn't really make much of a difference. Gaining buy-in has nothing to do with the system being difficult to use, because you can gain buy-in, but if the system isn't working, then that's still going to impact adoption. So that's to be eliminated. And when I say gain buy-in is really like you want people in the organization to want to use that system. They are agreeing, they're willing to participate, they're willing to engage. So buy-in is them kind of going along with using the system that you are implementing. But that's not really going to help adoption. So that's not really going to help adoption of a system that doesn't work. So we have B, conduct a beta review during the validate phase. That sounds like a pretty good choice. So a beta review helps to ensure that the new solution is functional and able to be used without technical difficulties. So that sounds good, right? We need a beta review would ensure that the system works. If the system works, that supports adoption. C is design a solution during the build phase. This choice is a bit too general. It's design a solution. It doesn't really address the question of people finding it difficult to use a new system. Sure, we've designed a solution, but that doesn't really touch on making sure that it's easy to use. So C is not the right answer. We know that B is the correct answer. It addresses all areas of this question. So when you conduct a beta review, you're able to see what needs to be fixed before you actually deploy it, so that when you do deploy it and the system is live, it is as functional as possible, and that will increase adoption. So 5, CloudKicks is preparing to deploy its configurations. The chosen release date is during a Salesforce release window. The current configuration is in a non-preview sandbox. Which 2 strategies should a consultant recommend? We're going for 2 answers here. So the sandbox preview, I want to talk about that a little bit. So this is a 6-week window ahead of a major Salesforce release when all preview sandboxes are upgraded to the next major Salesforce release. So it's your first chance to test your configurations on the new release. So test new configurations in a non-preview sandbox. That doesn't make sense because you want to test your configurations in a preview sandbox. You want to test your configurations in a sandbox that will incorporate all of the new elements of that release that's upcoming. So testing it in a non-preview sandbox is a waste of time because your org is going to be updated. So if you're using a non-preview sandbox, you're testing it in an environment that's going to be deprecated. So that does not make sense. So that leaves us with B and C, which are going to be our correct answers. So test new configurations in a preview sandbox. That is what you want to do. You want to test it in an environment that is most closely related to what's coming in that release. And you also want to deploy after the release. Deploy after the release because you want to see how all of your configurations are going to play out in the new upgraded Salesforce instance, because you can't prevent a Salesforce release. Like, your org is going to be updated regardless, so might as well just deploy after that update has taken place. So B and C are our two correct answers here. 6. Universal Containers recently implemented new Sales Cloud solutions. UC stakeholders believe that user adoption is best measured by the login rate. Which two additional key metrics should the consultant recommend? So the login rate is good to measure adoption because that means that people are using the system. If they're not using it, they wouldn't be logging into it. So that's why login is typically associated with a good adoption. So let's look at A, the data quality score. That's a good metric of user adoption because a high data quality score suggests that users are following the protocols of the system. They're entering the correct data. They're using it to enter data. So data quality is a good metric. License assignments is not a good metric. So each Salesforce user at an organization must be assigned a license. It's a prerequisite. If you're going to have a user, they need a license attached to their account. So license assignments are not correlated to adoption because assignments are simply a proxy for the number of Salesforce users in your organization, not necessarily how well they're using Salesforce. So the license assignments just correlates to the number of Salesforce users, not their adoption. So, because you can have a license and not be using Salesforce, so this is not the correct answer. And activity logs is one of the correct answers here. So activities are engagements that you're logging. So maybe meetings, phone call notes, email notes. You're just logging information about different communications that your stakeholders are having, that your employees are having with your stakeholders in your organization, such as your clients or donors. And so activities, if users are logging their activities, that suggests that they're using the system. Therefore, that suggests that there is good adoption. So A and C are our correct answers here. 7. The CloudCase team has made a correction in a sandbox environment that needs to be deployed to production as soon as possible. The sandbox and production environments are on 2 different versions of Salesforce. The fix requires functionality in the sandbox version. Which action should the consultant recommend? So what you want to do is you want to wait for both environments to be on the same version, because this ensures consistency and it reduces the risk of any unforeseen problems during the deployment process. So it also ensures just functionality required for the fix is available in both environments, which avoids any compatibility issues or discrepancies. Okay, so here, deploy the changes from the sandbox to production concurrently with the Salesforce platform upgrade. That doesn't make sense. You want to wait for the upgrade and then deploy changes. You don't want to do that at the same time because it could throw something off with the upgrade or with what you're deploying. So you want to just avoid doing anything concurrently as much as possible. Deploy changes from the sandbox to production this weekend. No. So does the question say when the environment is going to be upgraded? No. So deploying changes during the weekend, that's kind of random. why I asked if the question was asking when the environment is going to be upgraded is because you just want to wait for that environment to be upgraded. So you wouldn't want to deploy changes during the weekend. That's kind of random. You want to wait for the environment. So this will be eliminated. And then that leaves us with C, deploy changes from sandbox to production once both instances are on the same version. That's exactly what we've been looking for. So don't update concurrently. Don't randomly update over the weekend. Wait for them to be on the same version. Reason right through to 8. A Sales Cloud consultant is managing a new Sales Cloud implementation. What milestones and deliverables are included in the implementation process? So, data preparation is a part of the implementation process. So this is something you'd have to memorize. Data preparation and requirements are a part of the implementation process. The Salesforce proof of concept is not our correct answer because this should be completed before implementation, right? We're not going to get to implementation and then be asking whether Salesforce is the right platform or whether we should be even implementing this at all. This should be decided before you get to the implementation process. So in implementation, your milestones and deliverables that are key would be data preparation and requirements workshop. And then 9, which of the following should be considered to measure the adoption of a new Sales Cloud implementation? So we talked about this a little bit earlier. User implementation or user adoption is measured by login rates, completeness of data entered, and business performance. So what relates to that? Login rates and completeness of data entered. So therefore, campaign ROI is not a measure of adoption. It has nothing to do with user adoption at all, not even remotely related. So your login rates, completeness of data, and business performance. When I say business performance, I mean your opportunity pipeline. What opportunities do you have that could be potentially revenue generating? Those things are tied to adoption. And then the final question, what are some valid considerations during deployment of a Sales Cloud implementation? So a Sales Cloud implementation includes several stages. You have plan and prepare, set up and customize, deploy, drive adoption, and continuously improve. So in deployment, that's what this question is asking about. You add users, import data, and train users. So the method that will be used for loading users, that's a valid consideration because we're adding users in the deployment stage. If custom reports will be required and how apps will be customized, that relates to probably the setup and customize stage. So these are going to be eliminated. So the correct answer is in deployment, if we're adding users, importing data, and training, then the method that we use to add users matters a lot. So that's our final question today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this session. As a reminder, we're working through 10 questions on a weekly basis for different sections of the Sales Cloud exam. So feel free to check out previous videos where we talked about 2 other sections, practical applications of Sales Cloud expertise, which is about 30% of the exam, and the sales lifecycle section, which is about 23% of the exam. So be sure to check those out and happy studying.